It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm going to talk for about the next 15-20 minutes about how open source is driving collaboration and innovation. Guess I have to get the slides going here. There we go. Okay, so as you know, in the past, most information and data has been locked up in silos. I'm sure none of you are working on programs where your data is locked in a silo, right? No one? No, good. Well, that isn't just how we kept our data and our information, it's also how we worked. The prevailing view and long-standing practice has been that unique requirements trumped common needs. And as a result, instead of designing systems for maximum use, maximum reuse and sharing, each agency and program has built many stovepipe solutions that often were not interoperable. So what's wrong with this picture? What needs to be changed? Well, that fosters isolationism rather than collaboration. It's incredibly inefficient. It creates duplication rather than reuse. And frankly, it stifles innovation. So what's changed? This is more as things look today, and certainly how we hope things will continue to look in the future. Silos haven't disappeared, and some, I'm sure, are still being built. But there are new crops of open source projects and shared solutions that are popping up all over government. We're tapping into broad knowledge, experience, and existing solutions that meet common needs instead of working in isolation. We're sharing information and releasing data, which is really now the default for how agencies are expected to operate. Open source is helping to build and leverage communities in which people outside a particular agency or specific program, or even outside of government, are contributing their expertise to address some of the challenging issues and problems that we face. The increasing use of open source is evident in the ever-expanding list of open source projects across government on GitHub, which I imagine Ben Balter spoke about this morning. It currently includes code from over 400 projects from across government. So the shift is not just in technology, it's physical and it's virtual. Open source spaces like this is GSA's new headquarters or newly transformed headquarters at 1800 F Street are totally changing the way that we work. Rather than being holed up in offices, we're all out in the open. And that starts at the top. This is actually GSA Administrator Dan Tangerlini's office. If you look really carefully, you can see the GoDaddy, not the product, like GoDaddy from his daughter's sign on his desk. And more accurately, this isn't his office. It's his collaborative workspace. You can see that everybody's all around. It's just very easy to share ideas and work together on projects and ideas. So these are not short-lived fads. Policies have been put in place to ensure that these are lasting changes in how government operates. In May of 2012, many of you may remember the Digital Government Strategy was issued by the White House and focused agencies on making sure that information and data are available anywhere, anytime, and on any device. And then just this past May, the President issued the Open Data Policy and Executive Order, which made open and machine-readable data the new default for government. Agencies have to justify anything not made public, which is very much a shift from the past, where if you really wanted to get government information and data, you might have to submit a FOIA request or a question to an RFP. But it was certainly not an expectation that the majority of government data and information would be freely shared with the public. And under Project Open Data on GitHub, which Ben may also have mentioned, you can find a whole suite of practical open source tools that have been developed to help agencies achieve the objectives of the open data policy. There are a whole bunch of widgets and apps and really great practical tools that agencies across government are using to implement that executive order. So sharing is now the default. We are not keeping our goodies all to ourselves anymore. We're releasing open source code back into the community for the public good. So where are some examples of how this is happening? The open data policy calls for agencies to create inventories of their data, and for data.gov, which is run out of my office, to create a central catalog that makes it easier for entrepreneurs, developers, citizens to discover and use government data and information to drive development of new products and services. We're releasing a new version of data.gov in just a couple of weeks that instead of having agencies submit individual data sets, we've leveraged open source technologies to harvest agencies' data inventories to ensure ready access and use of all that open government data. That's just one of many new capabilities powered by open source that you'll see in data.gov and many other projects across government. In data.gov, the catalog and data management have moved from custom code to CCAN, which is an open source platform that powers data catalogs at many national and lower levels. Similarly, our content management system is now open source. And our data.gov team is sharing its work with the rest of the world, and open source collaborators inside and outside government are contributing to make this and other projects even better. And I don't know if you can see the little green graph on that slide, but that shows the extent of use of some of the open source code in CCAN. You can see there are some pretty big spikes. So, this code isn't just sitting idle. People are really using it. And in fact, in my office, we've been measuring the level of reuse of open source code in all our projects as an indicator of efficiency. And we found that across all our projects, we reuse an average of between 70 and 75% of open source code. So that's pretty high use. That saves a lot of money. It makes things much more efficient. And I think more importantly, it makes sure that the good work that's being done is being leveraged and used by other projects. Another place where open source code or open source is being used extensively is the Presidential Innovation Fellows Program. How many of you have heard about the Presidential Innovation Fellows? So a good number of you. So this is a really cool new program that pairs top innovators from the private sector, from academia and nonprofits, with government innovators in different agencies across government to collaborate on really hard problems that require some good, fresh thinking. We've got 23 projects across about 18 agencies, and this is the second round of fellows. They'll be completing their work at the end of December, and I think you'll be hearing more and more about the really great work that they're doing and what they're accomplishing. One pretty cool example is a project that is based on FDA's adverse event reporting system, which is a very big project that captures adverse effects of different medications and alerts citizens to possible dangerous interactions between medicine they're taking. Often, you're taking one medicine and then somebody prescribes you something else, and even though you'd hope that the doctor or the pharmacist would warn you of interactions, in some cases those interactions may not have been reported extensively enough to even be known. Similarly, often people anticipate unanticipated side effects. So this big system captures all of that. And while it's not yet ready for full-scale production, it has lots and lots of really good data in it, to the tune of about 100 million records. That's a lot of data. So what the Presidential Innovation Fellows have done is create in just 2 weeks an API that captures that data. So they did this in 2 weeks at virtually, no cost, no licensing, no procurement, 100 million records, and it's ready to go and be used. So great example, I think, of some of the great work that that group is doing. In my office, we've also, through the Digital Innovation Center, developed a mobile code sharing catalog to accelerate development of mobile apps across government. Many mobile apps in different agencies address pretty similar underlying problems, and so there's a lot of code snippets that can easily be leveraged or forked from one project to another. So we've put together a code sharing catalog and put it on GitHub so that agencies can easily leverage and reuse that code. So that's a pretty quick snapshot of what's going on across government. Let's talk for a minute about what are some of the challenges ahead. We've made lots of progress. There's no question that if you had asked somebody 5 years ago if we would be where we are today, I think you'd get some pretty skeptical looks. We've accomplished really so much, both in government and in industry. But we've still got a ways to go. So what are some of those challenges? Well, one is scale. How do you scale these efforts and innovations to the rest of government? In some cases, the work that's being done is limited to some pretty forward-leaning organizations, and to really have impact, it needs to be scaled across all of government and embrace more of our industry partners and bring in new industry partners. So how do we establish communities to govern and maintain open source projects as they grow and expand? Another challenge is speed. As you all know, keeping pace with rapidly evolving technologies is always a challenge, and with open source that's even more so, as more and more code and projects are developed and released out into the public. Keeping track of what's even out there so that you can maximize the value of what you're doing is a major challenge. Don't want to be overtaken by new developments before you even finish what you're working on. That makes it particularly important that we continue to embrace agile development and other new methods that allow you to very quickly iterate, test, and make sure that projects are evolving over time, rather than doing these mammoth multi-year projects that by the time you get to production, you're already obsolete. So we're really trying to move away from that style of working. And then finally, discovery. There's a lot of great stuff going on. There's tons of cool innovations across government, but even the most powerful innovations will have very, very little impact if they aren't easily discovered by entrepreneurs and developers and others who can reuse that open source code to develop new services and products that will drive economic development and improve people's lives. If we keep a blanket over all the work we're doing, it really won't nearly reach its potential. So we're really focused on discovery. We're using GitHub very broadly. As I mentioned, the Presidential Innovation Fellows are doing great work that is helping amplify some of the other work that's being done. And we're trying to get out and pull people together to collaborate in new and different ways. So in conclusion, success in using open source really depends on participation and collaboration to solve common problems. So I'd encourage you to jump on in. There's lots of work to be done, and we really want to do it with our government partners as well as our partners in industry. So thank you. Okay.